I know someone's just been saying.
Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the meeting of the Environment and Services Committee, 10th of December 2025. We have a thoroughly packed agenda to make our way through this evening. We've got quite a few members of the public in with us this afternoon or this evening. So having spoken to the members of the public and in respect to the time they're giving up, we're going to shift a couple of items around on the agenda. So we are going to move item 11 up. So that'll be the first sort of item of discussion of the public questions.
Perhaps.
And then we're also going to move up the future of Greenhill rafts, item 9. So we'll go the watercraft permits first discussion item, followed by Greenhill rafts, and then we'll continue with the agenda as laid out in advance. So first thing to do is apologies for absence. I'm not aware of any received in advance.
No, we have none.
Okay. Are there any further apologies or substitutions? I don't think we've got any. So therefore, we don't need to vote, do we? Right, we shall move straight on to item 3 then. Declarations of interest. There's none that have been pre-notified. Are there any that councillors have thought of since? Any further declarations of interest? Councillor Hope.
Thank you very much, Chair. I'll declare a non-pecuniary interest in the item in relation to fairgrounds. Through the charity work I deal with many fairground providers that may choose to tender.
Thank you very much. Any further declarations of interest? Wonderful, thank you very much. So we'll move on to item 4. So this is the minutes of the meeting held on the 29th of October 2025, and members are asked to approve them as a true and accurate record. And that they be signed as such. Are there any comments on those minutes before we move to the votes? Okay, I'm going to propose that we accept those minutes. You happy to second?
I'll second.
Seconded by Councillor Taylor. All those in favour, please. That is unanimous. Thank you very much. So at this point, we do have 2 councillors in the room who aren't members of the committee but have written in prior to the event. So we've got Councillor Orrell and Councillor Harris. Councillor Orrell, would you like to come up and deliver yours first?
Okay. Thank you, Chair. Won't keep it too long. So at this committee, sometimes I'm on your side of the table and looking at the best interest of council. But tonight I'm here in my other council role, which is standing up for the residents. So I grew up. My grandparents had a hotel at Greenhill. They used to go swim out the rafts. Growing up, my own children have now been able to repeat that experience. And the rafts have got a really integral part of Weymouth life over decades. And the loss of them is very keenly felt. So I've been lobbied quite a lot about this by my residents. So I promised I'd come to this committee and put in the plea that if we can find any way of keeping the rafts, then please do so. And to frame it as a question, are we sure we've done everything possible with the lawyers and insurance firms to see if there's a way forward?
So as per the question previously submitted, you asked, can we be reassured that we've gained a specific legal opinion on signage option to satisfy the insurance liability fully? I can confirm that we have spoken with our insurers, and as per the report, signs themselves are not enough to mitigate risks completely.
Fine. And the second one is about the fun fairs. Again, fun fairs very good because they do bring in income, but from my residents, it's the businesses which are close by them, which is the hotels and the seafront, which can be adversely affected if the rides are too big or too loud. So certain amount of fun fairs are fine. Can we be absolutely certain we won't get any that are too big and too loud that would interfere with the running of the businesses?
So throughout this process, we've been in communication with the Hotel Association. I've recently attended their AGM or one of their meetings, and they're happy with the proposals within the report. And as per the report, larger rides would be placed to the north of the site, and noises covered within the licence terms, and there's specific terms within the licenses for any fairground operators. And as per this year, any officers would ensure that we don't place high octane rides on site. So obviously we can't stop participants screaming, but we, try and limit them by not putting high octane rides in the area.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. And our next councillor outside of the membership of this committee wishing to speak today is Councillor Harris.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I put in 3 questions, 3 ideas, and I would like, with your blessing, to put my item 10, if it's still item 10, I'm not sure if it is, when we are having that debate, because what I'd like to do is put something into that debate as opposed to just chucking it out in the cold now.
If you're happy to stay on, that's
Yes.
absolutely fine, yeah.
Yes, because it'll be at the end now.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. I put in a question about the fun fairs, and I was informed, and I'm happy with the information I've been given, that we'll have considerable less income coming in because of the actions that we're taking. But this is in part due to the fact that there will be less opportunity for the fun fairs to be active, and as well as, of course, we're not having to pay Weymouth, Dorset Council for the hire of the area we normally use. I did ask the question, and I'm not sure I've got an answer to this, is whether we're likely not to be able to go back anyway to the fun fair, because there will be the building of the new hotel there, hopefully starting in place in 2027, and consequently there may not be an opportunity of going back to the pavilion site anyway. So that may be worth the committee thinking about when they're discussing that. Item 12, the watercraft storage. The question I asked was about whether there had been any information coming in from swimmers as to whether there was any danger they felt under when they were swimming, when the crafts were launching anywhere near. We haven't had any complaints from the swimmers, was the answer to that question, but I still feel that there is, if you just have a near miss, you're not going to think about complaining when you're in your wet costume and you then got to get out of the sea and everything else. And it's just, I'd like the committee to consider thinking about actually asking the swimmers over there at some stage. There's no urgency. I don't think because there haven't been any complaints, I don't think there's a real problem, but I think it would be something that we ought to actually ask them about, rather than assume because we've had nothing, then nothing has happened. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Councillor Harris. Okay, at this point, we're going to move on to public questions. Now, obviously, we've moved 2 items further up the agenda, who we are aware there are members of the public in the room with an interest in those items. Christine James has asked to make a statement on the Greenhill Rub, so if we can start with you. Yeah.
Just a few points. I haven't had a chance really to read through the agenda properly, but looking at the options, I would say the only option is to put them back, all the swimmers to enjoy, plus visitors. The inflatables that somebody has suggested on the list of options, I would suggest are more of a risk, because if any of you have ever been to an inflatable water park, you would know that if you're on one of them and somebody bigger than you jumps on, you're going to go flying off. So whoever came up with that idea needs to give their head a wobble. The rafts, I understand, have been there around 70 years, maybe longer. The RNLR have only been there around 10 years, as far as I remember. I've been here 28 years and I don't remember them being there previously. Signage, which was brought up again by Donna Rell. I asked about this a couple of years ago about signage, because the environment side of the groin, where there's a big sign saying do not climb on rocks, I don't know if you're aware, but at the bottom of it, it still says Weymouth and Portland Borough Council. So who's responsible for that if somebody has an accident? And I've never known anybody have an accident on the rocks. So all these other signs that we've got around the town warning people, like cycling, don't trip on the steps or whatever. So are they meaningless as well? Because if you've got a sign that says you enter the water or use the grass at your own risk, I can't say it's meaningless, because people need to take responsibility and we're not helping that. Did the council look for alternative insurers? Because I asked that question, we've got an answer. And how do Plymouth and Ringsted move? managed because Plymouth have them, so it's no good saying to me that they are illegal because people use them and people get enjoyment out of them. And I'm sure people there use them at their own risk because they're adult enough to understand that it is at their own risk. Jurassic Cafe, they have lost considerable business from the rafts not being there because a lot of the youngsters that use those rafts would go there to buy their food and their ice creams. And if you speak to people that own the chalets along there, they'll tell you that beach has become less public or less popularised since those rafts have gone. And again, who is running the council, the officers or the members? Because I'm going back to days of Weymouth and Portland Borough Council where we fought tooth and nail to make it a council-led council and not an officer-led council. You take advice from your officers, I understand that. And I understand there are probably people that are worried that if they put the rafts back without insurance or any other legal matters, that there could be backlash to it. So that's just a few things I'd like to say. But the swimmers, I can assure you on that report, I did read one bit about it's usually only that strong swimmers use them. So other swimmers, it's not accessible to them. That is a load of rubbish because you can walk out of those rafts at low tide. Yes, you might have to swim back.
Yeah,
But
30 seconds left.
Thank you. With the swimmers I've been with, there's never been a problem with anybody getting out to them or back to them. And I think if anything, it's good because it encourages people to learn to swim. We're surrounded by sea. You should be able to swim in the sea. You should be able to take your own risks. The rafts need to go back. You need to listen to the public and do something positive for them. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Are there any other members of the public wishing to speak on any of the items this evening? Will you start? If you can come up to the front. It's just then the sound system picks it up.
I got you right. Overcombe Corner, the boats, swimming, windsurfing, it's a boating lane allocated for watercraft. I swim, I windsurf, I kite foil, I sail a boat. All of it. I've never heard a problem about anyone being in a collision with a boat swimming. If anything, the windsurfing is more dangerous than the boat. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Yes, sir. If you could just introduce yourself as well, just for sorry,
It's totally fine.
Thank you. Thank you.
Hi there, I'm Gary Jarman and I've got a watercraft down at Overcombe Corner. And yeah, to the point about swimmers and the danger, I've thought about that sometimes when I'm taking the watercraft out, but I wanted to put across the idea that maybe that, like, going back to signage, which has been discussed just now, but signage just to let swimmers know that that is a watercraft lane, you know, and it has been for a long time, you know, marked on the maps. And I also just wanted to say how brilliant I found the pilot scheme with watercraft down at the front. It's been really, really fantastic, giving us an opportunity to. I've taken my nieces and nephews out and taught my niece how to sail and things like that. So I'm really hoping that we can continue with that. But yeah.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Are there any other members of the public that would like to speak on any of the items this evening? Okay, at which point we go into our little rejig of the agenda. So we're going to go to what was originally labelled item 11, which is the watercraft permits item. And Will Holmes is going to introduce this report for us. Thank you, Will.
Thank you, Chair. This report reviews the first year of the Preston Watercraft Storage Scheme as a pilot period ends. It sets out how the scheme has operated, what users and local residents have said, and the key points councillors need to consider when deciding its future. The scheme provides a designated area at Oasis Beach for storing small boats, kayaks and dinghies while keeping the beach open to everyone. The report covers permit numbers, income, costs and the monitoring carried out over the year. Feedback shows strong support from users who value easier access, safer launching and the wider social and wellbeing benefits. At the same time, some residents have raised concerns about vision impact, noise, safety and the lack of early consultation. These views are summarised clearly. The officer recommendation is to continue the scheme in its current location, along with steps to improve communication, keep the site tidy, manage noise, and maintain regular monitoring to address concerns and support the scheme going forward. Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed. Okay, so at this point, We've already heard from members of the public on this item. We've had the instruction, so we open it up to the members of the committee. Is there anyone that would like to speak regarding this item? Councillor O'Leary.
Yes, thank you very much. This is not my Weymouth Town Council ward, it is my Dorset Council ward. Background on this, I had a complaint from some residents about some of the watercrafts being disorganised and a bit messy down at this part of the beach. It was originally agreed they would be removed. I think then that had gone on for some period of time. A compromise was then suggested of having a system such as this. It's been on for a trial now for a year. I think the key word, what I just said, was compromise. I think this is a good compromise in regards to keeping the area tidy and not leaving it as an area where things are just left indefinitely. But also understand the beach is there to be used. In regards to Councillor Harris' comments, I understand what he was trying to get at, but reviewing, I had a meeting today with Will to go through this, which did settle my opinions quite a bit. But in regards to this is an area with a defined lane for this type of thing. I'm a member of the Overcombe and Bowleys residents WhatsApp group, is the ward member, not I live up there. But I put out in there what they think and had positive responses. But there are some residents who are opposed to this due to the fact it is in the direct vicinity of the houses, and I understand that. And that's why, although I do have reservations about it, I am pleased that they won't have things such as the masts, I think is key. And I was pleased that, speaking to Will, this will be enforced on a weekly basis to make sure it doesn't get out of control. So therefore, I will be voting in favour of it continuing.
Okay, is there, thank you for that. Is there anyone else? Councillor Weller.
Thank you very much, Chairman. I didn't go up to this end of the beach terribly often, so I went yesterday in the rain. Such is my dedication. It seems to me, I have seen them there before. I think that if we're policing it regularly, because we do know that these areas can get very untidy, and that exacerbates the problems that residents have. So look after that. I was going to ask you a question, Will, and that is at the moment there are 2 or 3 boats up higher up, obviously up out of the way of the sea. I guess those are not permit holders, or if they are, they've given you a ring to let them know, because that's looking a little bit untidy at the moment. So provided we do patrol and we do keep an eye on things, it seems, you know, more and more people want to get out on boats at a price that they can afford, and this is a way of them doing it. And I would hate to think that we became such killjoys that we prevented other than wealthy people being able to have access onto the water. Seems like quite a good compromise there, provided we keep it in control and provided people don't take advantage. And if we can keep that in mind all the time, it should continue, in my view.
Thank you very much. Councillor Dickinson.
Unlike Councillor Weller, I live 4 minutes from said location. And I think it's an absolutely fantastic compromise, because I've monitored this for as many months as it's been going on. And it's certainly improved the area enormously. So I cannot see what anybody would be objecting. It's a really good compromise.
Thank you very much. Councillor. Oh, sorry. Will, we'll have to come in at that point.
I was just going to reply back to Councillor Weller's question regarding the two boats up at the top. If I think I'm right on this one, the 2 boats you're talking about were actually not within Weymouth Town Council land. There's a part of the car park up at Oasis that is privately owned, so it cannot. We've got no jurisdiction there.
If I could just, they're not on the car park, they're on the raised bit, which is shingle. So you might just like to have, when you pass it.
Yeah.
It's the car park as well, isn't it?
Yeah. There's the big rocks that kind of go up to a triangle. All of that is privately owned.
Right, okay.
Thank you very much. Councillor Hope.
Well, thank you very much, Chair. sounds like the pilot's been very successful. The report here this evening, and I know members of the committee have had one resident send us quite a long emails and photos. My only question here is, do we feel that the cost that we're charging, now I know we had some outlay land this year when we set up the pilot, but now a one-off cost, so we won't be incurring again. Do we actually think the cost is reasonable for the sort of time that we're now putting in for the additional enforcement? Because I think enforcement of this is key, because it's pointless having a scheme if people don't get away with not having a permit and parking there. And I'm sure those that have permits would see that as unfair also. So I'm just wondering, around £10.50, not even £10.50 a month. Do we feel that's a fair charge, given the staff costings for the enforcement and monitoring, whether or not that should be increased slightly, at least to match increases in pay each year?
So the weekly check is tied in with the other weekly check that they're required, that the officers are required to do along Preston Beach. So it is part of their route to go up and down to check that area. So it wouldn't be somebody has to walk from the beach office all the way up to Preston just to check that. They're doing other bits as they go.
Yeah, no, I'm just quite happy that there's no additional staffing costs involved in monitoring and managing this, then that really doesn't stand. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor O'Leary.
Yeah, representing Preston again on Dorset Council, but so I know the area well. Now you have to pay for the toilets in Preston, and now you have to pay to store a watercraft in Preston. Yeah, I do think Preston doesn't see a fair share of town council resources, bearing in mind how much it probably contributes. I would just like to make a small plea that perhaps the money could be looked at, earmarked towards any profitability from the earmarked towards improvements in the Preston area. That's all I'd like to say.
As part of the budget working group that happened a couple of weeks ago, with this report coming in mind, I have increased the equipment budget within the resort cost centre by, I think off the top of my head, about £500 to be able to put that into the watercraft area each year. So that income can go back into that area to speak to the user each year to see what they would help in that area. So some of the money is certainly going back into that area.
Just coming back onto that, is there anything they could perhaps also bear in mind to do and support making the area a bit nicer and tidier to help mitigate some of the residents' concerns that have raised issues about the sightliness of the area due to the permit being held? I know we have some benches down there. I can't remember what state they're in, and there are other town council facilities in the Preston area. I know the toilets will be able to be done and won't cover anywhere near the cost of that, but there are things like play parks, bins, things like that. So I would like it said that Preston pays an awful lot into the town council, I believe, and probably doesn't necessarily get the best value for money compared to other areas, I suspect, if you actually did it on a pound for pound basis.
I think that would naturally apply to some other areas as well. Maybe that's a debate for another time and during the budgets, etc.
And I leave the secession movement.
Okay, so obviously a very clear view in the room, I think, developing here. My view on it is it's well controlled, it's been well implemented, it's clearly appreciated by the users of the facility. Heard from the officer, we've talked through the finances and why this has been an excellent compromise and what the council should be doing, which is listening to views, finding a middle ground that benefits the community. So really excellent work, and thank you, Will, for your work and the work of your team towards that. At this point, I'm very happy to propose, I was waiting to see if anyone else would want to, but I am very happy to propose the officer recommendation. Is there anyone happy to second? Councillor Dickinson. So I think at this point, we'll move to the vote. All those in favour? That is unanimous. Thank you very much. And thank you to the members of the public that have attended this evening as well. And thank you to Will again. Thank you. Don't feel you have to suffer. Stay in this meeting for longer than is entirely necessary. Thank you for your time. Thank you for speaking on the item. Oh, right. They're sticking around. Good stuff. Right. So at this point, this is our other shift in the agenda. So we are now on what was previously billed as item 9, future of Greenhill Rafts, and this is going to be introduced by our Assistant Terrier.
Thanks, Chair. This report updates members on the Greenhill swimming rafts following new RNLI guidance issued in July 25. RNLI have reclassified offshore bathing rafts as structures similar to aquapark equipment falling outside a normal beach lifeguarding. It highlights significant and unavoidable risks, including blind spots for lifeguards. Following this new advice, the council's insurers withdrew cover and the rafts were removed. Officers and councillors, we fully recognise how much the Greenhill rafts mean to residents and visitors alike. They've been enjoyed by generations of families and are widely regarded as part of Weymouth summer tradition. Because of this, officers have worked exhaustively to find a safe and workable way to retain them. 7 detailed options were explored, including reinstating the original rafts with extra lifeguards, using inflatable alternatives, changing locations, daily winching, or involving other operators or lifeguard providers. Despite this extensive piece of work, every option involving reinstatement was found to be either unsafe, uninsurable, or operationally unviable, particularly because we cannot provide outside lifeguard hours. Officers have also consulted with the Harbour Authority, other resorts, and the RNLI, and no safe or insurable model has been identified that would allow the rafts to return in their previous form. The only option that fully mitigates risks is to permanently remove the rafts, which would also avoid the annual deployment costs, although this is very minimal. While this is a difficult conclusion given their historic popularity, the safety, liability and insurance implications are clear. The report sets out the findings of this work and asks members to consider the available options accordingly.
Thank you very much. So I think it's worth pointing out at this stage that we know this is an extremely emotive item. There's been a lot of coverage on social media. I've received some understandably passionate emails over the last few days and contacts via social media. And the first thing to say is I know that certainly from my experience at the council, I never heard the removal of the rafts being discussed before the change of report from the RNLI. I haven't spoken to a single councillor or officer who has a desire to remove the rafts. It is a situation which is pretty unpalatable, and unfortunately we're between a rock and a hard place in many ways, and that's why we've got the debate tonight. Essentially, my understanding of the situation is we've got a community that wants to keep the rafts, we've got members that want to keep the rafts, we've got officers that want to keep the rafts. However, we obviously have a duty to operate within the law in an insured way to maintain public safety. So that is sort of the premise of the debate tonight, is looking through the officer's report. Of course, I'm sure there'll be some questions that Charmaine can respond to. The report was very, very detailed, and there's been a lot of sort of meetings and conversations prior to this to see if we can find a way through. And we can see before us the detail of what's being produced, reasonings for it. So, not a debate that any of us ever really wanted to be having, but let's move into the member discussion at this point. Is there anyone that would like to speak? Councillor O'Leary.
First again.
Oh, sorry.
Some of this is what I wanted to say anyway, and some of this in response to what Honourable Alderman James said. In regards to being a member-led council, members make policy, members don't make operational decisions. The removal of the rafts was an operational decision that none of us, like Councillor Bell and the chairman said, none of us wanted to make. But it was an operational decision based on legal implications. It's illegal under the Local Government Act of 1888, which is the first Local Government Act, I believe, for the council to make decisions that are illegal and unlawful. And the people that are responsible for making those decisions, believe me, I believe if something goes wrong at this council, is the town clerk, who I don't believe should be made legally responsible for a decision made by this council. So it isn't just clear cut ignoring officers' advice. Officers have to carry out this task, and I'm not going to send an officer off to make a decision that could then come back to them and have legal implications. No one wants to make this decision in regards to removal of the rafts. We've been given 7 options. There's only one that I can see is actually legal or lawful. Actually, I should say lawful. The only reason this is before committee is because it was requested specially to come back because it was such an awful decision. Normally a decision like this, and I know it sounds uncomparable, the decision to remove a dangerous slide in a play park, for instance, if it was in a bad state, rusty and sharp, wouldn't come to committee. I can guarantee you, if there was a rusty bit of equipment at a play park in Liverpool that needed removal, it wouldn't come to committee. You know, yes, it could be replaced, but that's a different situation. So obviously we'll have a debate this evening on it. I'm sure members will have something to say. As this is something to do with the law is made by Parliament. We're not a legislative body, neither is Dorset Council. Our MP made a big song dance video that he was going to help save the RAS and step in and do everything he can. Can I ask the officer, has he been in touch with the council with any actual solution on this? And if not, I'll come back to based on what the answer is to that question.
I've personally been leading on this and haven't had any conversations with our local MP regarding the RAS or any of the advisors.
Right, so the video he made was really good then, so he's done an awful lot of work on that. So can I therefore, I would like to make an amendment to any proposal that's put forward, they actually write to our member of parliament to see if there's anything in law that could be perhaps changed, because it's not going to be a short solution, nothing is when it comes to this. They actually write to him to lobby on it, because he said he was going to work with us and do everything he can. That's what he said in his fancy taxpayer funded video. So I'd like to see some actual action, not just bandwagon jumping for him.
So, do you, at this stage, are you able to have that?
Yes.
Do you have a form of words you'd
Well,
like to?
can I see what is put
Yep.
forward first, and
Yep.
then I'll make an amendment based on that.
Absolutely, and remind me later in the process.
Oh, I will.
So, so I can't come to members of the public at this point. Are there any other members of the committee? Councillor Toft.
I have looked at all of the options, and the obvious one is the one that none of us want to go with. But we were given the costings of how much it would be to actually employ a lifeguard dedicated to that spot. And because this is such an important item to the residents, have we costed how much a winch and everything would cost? Because if we can add all the cost together and say it comes to whatever it comes to, and we do it and we put the precept up, as we go, right, you all wanted this, it's cost 200 grand to put in place, we put the precept up. Perhaps that would be acceptable to residents because they get their rights. I don't know.
Okay, thank you for posing that quandary. When we come to the assistant town clerk at this point, so I know winching was looked into, it was something I raised in discussions beforehand, whether there was that concept of bringing them in and out. I know there's been discussions with the harbour master for advice and guidance, so over to Charmaine at this point.
So we didn't explore the costs in detail regarding the winch system, because following discussions with the harbour master, it was felt that actually we could deploy them in the morning and come the afternoon. You know, apparently the conditions out there can change just like that. And he said we might get them out, and then they're stuck out and can't get them back in. Actually, we've then leaving the risk out there, and then it's still not been covered in the evenings.
Councillor Hope.
Yeah, thank you very much. I think this is a decision that it's been followed by the whole of the town. We've seen that when the announcement was first made, and again, you know, I was quite upset and vocal at that time about the decision that was being made, but as Councillor Leary said, it's an operational matter that was taken by our officers. And the reason that was taken was because of the change in cover from the RNLI. Now, maybe I've been here for too long, but I recall, and Councillor Taylor will, and the Alderman James will recall, that the removal of the rafts was before us back in 2011. And the late Honorary Alderman Joyce Stanley was again champion their return. Part of that return was deployment of lifeguards. So I think this council, Councillor Weller, of course, you've been there as well, longer than most of us. But where was I go? Anyway, my full trace there. We seriously need to have a look then whether we need RNLI covering that side of the beach, or whether that could be a possible saving for this council, because their purpose, to the mind of this council and the predecessor council, was to cover the rafts.
Yeah.
So that is a discussion, no matter what happens on the recommendation this evening, we need to consider, especially going into budget setting.
So,
Ma-
sorry, you got one?
Yeah, again, many residents want to see them remain, and I'd hate to see this as a closed deal this evening.
Yeah.
One of the options we've got here is option 5, return to operators for the raft. Maybe one of the businesses that have been benefiting, as Honourable Alderman James mentioned a few of them, could look collaborative to try and take a run in the rafts and deploying them, if it is that much of a financial incentive to have rafts in the area for them. I know they have lots of hurdles to overcome, as we're now finding. But the question I've got is, we understand that other councils are self-insuring these across the country. Plymouth is one. Whilst we do not have the money in our accounts to cover a possible injury, have we, and I couldn't see anywhere in the report that said this either way, and it was something that was discussed in our member briefing, have we approached Dorset Council to see if that's something they could do for us? The risk is incredibly low. We know how long they've been there. We know the accidents that have happened, 0. The potential for a risk is still 0. With mitigation, and I know signage isn't a legal case, but we won't have to worry about legal if that's self-insured. With signage and the RLI remaining during the busy hours, have we approached Dorset Council to see whether or not they would support us in this? It means a lot to our residents, it means a lot to their residents also then. And I'm wondering whether or not that option has been addressed.
Thank you, and I know Charlotte's been scribbling away all the points you raised there and has some responses.
So firstly regarding the lifeguard provision this summer, so over the summer, after the rafts were removed, the lifeguards continue to monitor the beach and the in-water population at Greenhill. And whilst the in-water population it did go down slightly, the RNLI anticipate that this will reduce the scoring matrix with the safety, it's basically do a scoring matrix. So even though it reduced slightly, but they believe that Greenhill will remain within the low and medium risk category overall, which would require lifeguard provision. So what I'd suggest is that we continue with the lifeguard provision for this year, and the statistics, if the rafts aren't, we've got a whole season of statistics from Greenhill and that would find it. But at the moment, the RNLI saying there's still a significant amount of people and only reduced slightly. Actually. And as previously mentioned, I have been in discussions with the harbour master, and the harbour master has said that whoever deploys the rafts would have to insure them, whether that's ourselves, a third party, another business, that they're fully insurable. And apologies, I've got technical issues, but this is why it keeps going on and off.
So just one further point related to what came through your discussion piece.
And also, in 2024, Greenhill was placed 50th out of 242 lifeguarded beaches for the number of rescues carried out, and 13 members of the public were unable to safely get themselves back to shore from the rafts. So that was mentioned earlier regarding like weak swimmers and so forth. But there's 13 rescues that was last year.
Did you want to come back?
Yeah, because I don't think my last point, I know that discussions have happened with the harbour master and the harbour master's got his views. But have we approached Dorset Council to see if they would cover self-insure this?
The only discussions had with Dorset Council are with the harbour master, and that was his views were about the insurance.
Is this related directly to that child as Councillor Weller?
You carry on.
Yeah, Councillor Taylor.
I'm just looking at the paper, and on this point, it says that the harbour master would have to be satisfied on insurance alongside other appropriate mitigation measures. Now, what I'd be very concerned about that is if we leave the rafts out and we have no RNLI cover at night. You can't leave them out there all the time, would be my view on it. And I don't know how even Dorset Council to get around that. There's self-insurers. I think you'll be struggling with it. It's just my personal opinion. But I think it still won't satisfy the harbour authority.
Councillor Weller.
I'm very happy for Councillor Atkinson to go first. We're probably going to say much the same thing, so I'll fill in anything that's
Ready? Councillor Atkinson.
I want to. Okay.
Like to thank the officers for their efforts on a very difficult problem, but however, I think there are some issues. One issue is that this is a very important matter to not only to the councillors but also to the residents. And I wonder whether it should be deferred to full council, so that all councillors can be present, because some who aren't here tonight feel very strongly about the issue. I've had conversations with one of them. So that's my first point. If option 7 is followed, which I don't agree with, then perhaps it should only be for a year until we should continue to look for other solutions. I think we do need to look for a safe compromise. I am concerned that I haven't seen, I'm not a lawyer, but I haven't seen the legal arguments. They don't seem to be particularly consistent with a report for the Maritime Coast Guard Agency by a legal firm about review of legal responsibilities for beach safety. It's not clear what the beach safety issue is. So I think we need to have a little bit more, us as councillors need to see what the legal opinion is and how deep is that legal opinion. That's my next, I haven't finished yet, let me finish. I think, are there other ways of trying to get a compromise? Would it be helpful if the raft was at a minimal distance from the shore? Would it be helpful if there was a floating rope between the shore and the raft, so if any swimmer did get into difficulty, they have something to hold on to? There may be compromise that we can find with more effort. So I wondered about that. Yes, I think that's probably my main issue. Oh, and the final point is some mitigation is possible by having signage up about people having personal responsibility for some of their own actions and to be aware of dangers such as rip size and things. So I think mitigation could be helped by having signage by the rafts.
So several of those, thank you. Several of the points were covered, and again, I can see Charmaine is preparing a response to some of the points raised.
So thank you for that, Councillor Atkinson. With regards to signage, signs are considered one part of taking reasonable precautions against foreseeable risks. However, warning signs alone are not enough to completely absolve the council's liability for insurance purposes. The insurance is alone. You mentioned beach safety. This isn't regarding beach safety. This is adding an additional risk to the beach.
No, I understand.
Beach
But I haven't seen the legal. I haven't seen the legal.
If you let me
opinion.
continue. With regards to changing the distance of the rafts to the beach. Again, this is something we've looked at, something we've discussed with the RNLI, actually increases the risk because of depth of water. So the risk of injury due to depth of water. That was something we've spoken about. And again, you mentioned a rope going in and out. This isn't necessarily about the operations, and we can have the rafts out there, but what happens once lifeguards go home? How do we get them in and out? What happens at 10, 11 o'clock at night if there was an accident and we don't have a lifeguard there? That is what this is about. It isn't about the daily operation.
Thank you. Councillor Lewin.
Yeah, coming on to a few of the points raised earlier. In regards to not hearing the legal argument, in fairness, you have had several months to ask to see it from the officers. This is not a new issue that's just popped up today as an emergency item.
So you see.
No, but I'm not the one complaining I haven't seen it.
Can we talk through the chair?
But, sorry, Chairman.
Sorry.
No one here wants this removed. I think it's quite obvious that. I do think whatever is decided tonight, if it's decided that cannot be the end of it. I think there always has to be an ongoing discussion and a long-term goal of getting them back, but it's about doing so. That doesn't put a legal responsibility on the officers. I don't think anybody's going to go out there and die. I know you said 13 people were rescued. I find it unlikely that 13 people would have died at Greenhill from swimming last year, but those are statistics. And this is typical of modern Britain. And no one thinks more of this health and safety rubbish than I do. We've gotten into in this country, we've become like America where you get sued for everything. But that is the way things are. And until that changes, if it does change, then this is the facts. We can only deal with the facts as they are now. And therefore, I think whatever happens, it has to be an ongoing thing, about an ongoing process trying to get them back. But we tonight have to deal with the situation that is before us, I think is the key thing doing that. No one here, like I say, is advocating to come back. The annoying thing is about this decision is there isn't one person to blame. This is a faceless decision that comes from changes in advice, in policy, in all these types of things in advice. I think if we vote to put these rafts out tonight, I would be very surprised if there weren't questions asked. Or even, not a refusal by officers, but I would want to be on the decision of I won't be on the other side of a decision made by this council that put me in a legal quandary. And I think that legal quandary is stupid, but it is the facts and it's the way things are currently. And like I say, I think what is needed actually is the change of advice. But like I say, an ongoing goal of getting their ass back, whether that takes the form of a working group, similar to the CE, but on a much slimmed down version, but a running working group on this, or one councillor being the chairman of services working with officers on it. But I know Councillor Bell done an awful lot of work on this. So that's, you know.
Thank you, and just to add to that, we're talking about a potential addition to the recommendation. That idea of ongoing work would be part of that, would be asking our MP to do what he can to call some levers as well. Councillor Wallin, you can move on.
Thank you very much. To answer Councillor O'Leary, I am pretty sure that Mr. Hatton has spoken to the RNLI, even if he hasn't spoken to our officers. I thought that a caseworker had spoken to you, but if that's not the case, then I will happily take that back. But I do know they've spoken to the RNLI and had exactly the same advice as you would expect. They have been consistent in their advice all the way along. I go along with what everybody has said pretty much. None of us want to do this. There are 8 of us here on this committee, and it is a subject that affects every single resident. In, you know, whether you're a swimmer or not, you have a son or a daughter or an aunt or an uncle, grandchild, who has or does use the rafts. So it's a very emotive situation. I think it's a decision that should be made by full council, because just as we said all that time ago, that Councillor Bell should not be the person who makes a decision singly, because he was the chairman of the committee. Equally, I don't think 8 people should make that decision. I think it should be a decision of full council, and I would suggest it goes back. I would suggest that we make the report as I'm not suggesting it's not comprehensive, because it absolutely is, but as comprehensive, covering the points that have been discussed today as well. So we keep that debate, because none of us really want to have this debate ad infinitum. Keep that debate as succinct as possible, but make that decision. I think if we are making the decision not to put the rafts back this year, or this coming year, it should be on the basis that we will continue to explore how we can have them back adequately insured with as many safety operations as we possibly can. I wonder whether it's worth us speaking to an actuary to find out exactly what the risks are there, and then we're in a much better position and in a much stronger position when we go to insurance companies.
Thank you. Councillor Taylor.
Thank you. I've listened with interest in this discussion, and I actually find I'm agreeing with Councillor O'Leary.
Goodness me, it's Christmas.
Where I'm coming from, I've used those rafts a lot, thoroughly enjoyed them, they're great fun. But I've also been really scared out there on the rafts, because once you get out there, if you're not a strong swimmer like I am, it's actually quite way back, and it's, yeah. But in another world, I'm also a health and safety professional, and I've done that for years, and I've got qualifications coming out of my ears on health and safety. And one thing I don't like, and I don't agree with Councillor O'Leary, is that health and safety is to stop things being done. Health and safety done well is actually the opposite way around. Health and safety enables all of us to do things safely. Health and safety enables us to do things like cross the road without getting run over, and that sort of thing, and loads of other things. And that is what this is about. To me, the assessments have been done on this. I've looked at it, and from a health and safety point of view, I can't find mitigation sufficient that would allow me to vote for this. That would allow me to say, okay, I can go to bed tonight, and I know there's not some teenagers going to swim out there if it was there. And basically get into trouble. And I don't want that on my conscience, having swum out to the rafts and been quite scared myself. And that's 20 odd years ago, 30 years ago, I did that. So for that reason, I'm with Councillor O'Leary, but for a slightly different reason. And I will be voting to remove the rafts. I would actually oppose it, just coming back on some of the other things, I would oppose it going to full council. For a simple reason, this is the second time this has come to this committee. Councillors have had stacks of time to come and talk to us, and none of them are here apart from Councillor Harris and Councillor Orwell. You know, I haven't had any communications from any of the other councillors. So to me, they may have an opinion, but they're very, very quiet on this. And if they were really worried, they should have got in touch with us, because there are 10 of us rather than 8 of us.
Look, maths was never my strong point.
But the point is, they've had ample opportunity to come and talk to us. And this is an operational issue. We are here to make policy. We're not here for operational stuff. And that is exactly what Louis O'Leary has said, Councillor O'Leary has said, and I quite agree with him. Because if we thought something was dangerous, we would remove it. Whether it's a slide, whether it's a raft, whether it's a tree, we would just get on and remove it. And that's what I think we need to make the decision tonight, rather than what we tend to do, which is go around in circles and things come back again and again to committee. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Toft.
Thank you. Could I ask Councillor Taylor, had there been a safety rope that was attached to the shore when you were feeling unsafe out there, would you have just swum alongside it?
No, because it gives me the creeps. Quite honestly. The thought that there might be something hanging onto the road, it's just, you know,
it just seems to me to be an incredibly sensible suggestion that I haven't heard before. And I wondered if you asked the insurers whether their opinion would change. If you could just hold on to the rope to get back to the shore. If you felt, you know, I don't know.
If I could answer that one, it's again, like I mentioned earlier, this.
Guys, we'll be listening in.
Like I mentioned earlier, this isn't about the daily operation of somebody being able to get in and out of water. It's those rafts being there uncovered by the lifeguards. So for example, you could have the rope, but as soon as lifeguards go home, those rafts are still there, and that's still the risk that Councillor Taylor's just mentioned.
Thank you. I'm trying to remember where I was going next. Just something was the
I defer if somebody else wants to go
first. Councillor Home.
Yeah, thank you very much. I'm just wondering, you know, deployment of items on the water is not the expertise of this town council. Obviously, the harbour master would have more of a say, and he's uncomfortable with the current mitigations in place. Have we actually, again, looking at councils that are running these things, have we actually asked them, what is your risk assessment? What are you doing to mitigate the risk? What's the difference between ours? Have we gone out and looked at actual support from professionals that can support us with risk mitigation? I just feel that, again, and I know things have changed, and I know the RLI guidance have changed, and that's what's caused us to review our risk assessment and get this situation as where we are now. But 70 years these have been there, and it's not been an issue. They were removed once, and it was satisfied, and they came back. And I'm just struggling to feel that this is the end of the rafts, and I know that so many residents, well, previous residents have got memories, and those that are, you know, it's something that we should be taking every opportunity to do. And, you know, I'm not coming to this meeting saying this now, I've been saying it since the beginning, during the member briefing. And I was told that all of these would be looked at before this paper came this evening. That's why I'm asking the questions has this all been done? Do we really, really believe, for our residents' sake, there is nothing else we can do?
So there is a section in the reports about rafts and other resorts, so I'll refer to Charmaine at this point.
I have spoken by myself and Ian, both spoken to another resort, the only resort that we're aware of that has actually got swim rafts that are remaining. And their decision is to not lifeguard their rafts at all. I'm not going to sit here and I've read their risk assessment. We've all, as a senior leadership team, read their risk assessment. It isn't correct. It isn't, the calculations within it aren't right. And it's our views that actually the risks associated with operating the rafts and Weymouth this would still be unacceptable, you know, we just couldn't do it the way that they do it. How, again, it's a bit of red herring, it's something, again, we have spoken about this, we're as passionate about this as members. We've had so many conversations between myself and Councillor Bell, and it's a little bit of a red herring looking at other resorts, because it doesn't matter what they've been told or how they're operating, it's the information that we've been given and how we have to make the decisions on the information we've been given, not necessarily the information of other resorts.
Also, I hope you want to come back.
Yeah, can I just come back, and again, as much as I respect the view of our officers, I'm just picking up on a point there that the SLT have looked at that and looked at the mitigations, and they feel that it cannot be covered. And I think, you know, I don't want to defer this, but I think we do need that member briefing where we can see that information so that we have a clear picture and understanding, because we had one member briefing, we was told it would come back, then it was coming to this the committee before this, now it's here. I feel that actually members, again, whilst I understand it's operational, this would be no different than a PID coming forward and a new project coming out. So we do have a part to play on some operational matters, much like we are with buses and with Councillor Harris's PID. So I feel that actually, I don't feel I've got all the information. I'm biased to the fact that I think they should be remaining, and again, that's listening to the residents, the public, which is what we're here to do and serve. And I've yet to be convinced by officers that actually we cannot do anything more. The fact that we've not even asked also council if they would self-insure or is a matter. So I would actually request this item is deferred with a member briefing to discuss this more with more information before us.
Councillor O'Leary.
Yeah, while I understand what Councillor says, I'm not entirely
Chair, I've made a proposal there, I'm actually calling for a second.
What was your proposal?
The item is deferred.
I'll second that.
to debate that.
Yeah. Should we need to get some word in it now?
It's just a fairly straightforward, I don't think we need to word it up there.
Okay, so I propose we've had a second to defer. Let's go into a debate about that.
I was going to make a recommendation. While I was minded towards option 7, I don't like the wording removes the rafts in their entirety. So I don't feel that is what the feeling of this committee was. While I think what we needed is a decision that yes, the rafts are currently not able to go out, but there would be something along the lines of a working group to look at solutions in what they may come back at another time in the future. But that would be my proposal, but just not perhaps 2026, pending hopefully a way that we get around it. And like I say, members who are keen on this could be on that working group. So not, it doesn't have to be a too official, but they could work with officers and the member of parliament, etc. Try and work on a solution. But
okay, so obviously we've had
sorry, just to clarify, just say because to remove the rafts in their entirety does to me, it just makes it sound like that's fine or that's that. And you know, we're having a debate here. None of us want that. I know Councillor says we're here to listen to our residents. Yes, we are, absolutely, but we also have to then make sure that the decisions we're making on behalf of those residents are lawful. And what the proposal I was going to make, as opposed to a deferral as proposed, would help get members in the room to be working on those proposals, not now.
okay. Councillor Atkins.
I support the idea of deferring, but I would very much like to receive the legal evidence, because some of the councillors here seem to be accepting the legal evidence without having seen it, which I think is good enough. So I would like to see the legal evidence, and I would like to see a solicitor look at it to say that this is correct. And so I think we should defer for that reason. Let's have the legal evidence that it really is the RAF is an issue that can't be resolved by other litigation means.
Sorry, can I ask Councillor Atkinson, if you asked to see the legal advice?
No, I haven't asked to see the legal advice, but you're accepting it, but you haven't seen it either.
You have had months to ask for the legal advice. I'm not the one complaining I haven't seen the legal advice. I am taking officers who are the ones that have to make the operational decision to do it are telling me, because they are the ones that are legally responsible, not you, not me. I understand that you want to see legal advice, and that's fine. I'm content for you, but it's a bit frustrating for you to come to the meeting at the last minute complaining you haven't seen the legal advice when you've had at least a week that it's been on the agenda and time to ask for it.
Councillor Hope.
Thank you very much. I think just going back to my proposal that's now on the table, Chair. I think it's more than just the legal advice. And I have to say is, and again, back to the comment made by Councillor O'Reilly during the public questions was, can we be assured every opportunity is being looked at? And already we're being told, no, it's not, because we haven't asked Dorset Council whether they were self-insured. They might say no, they'll probably say no, but it's not being explored. So that is the reason I'd like a deferral, I'd like a member briefing, where we can see more of the technical detail, we can see some of this, we can actually be content that every opportunity is being looked at before we make a decision.
Okay, I'm just gonna. Councillor O'Leary.
Can I just, the only thing I would say, can that member briefing be in face to face in person, please, as opposed to online?
So, all the points, is that you're happy with that words, or is that just negative?
We can do it as part of the information.
Councillor Hope, given it's your proposal,
I
would
would
you like to
not,
see that in the form of words?
no,
like that?
I wouldn't,
Just noted.
because there are members that would need or possibly need to join online. So whilst a hybrid option is a possibility, I wouldn't want to then exclude members that couldn't join.
That's
Yeah,
fine, I was referring more to some form of wording about a members briefing. And what you are looking for that deferral to achieve. Whether you feel you want
I
that
think
up there,
I
whether you
have
have to
summarised the points, but if you need them to formulate, I've already covered the points I think in what I've spoken to. But if you need to include them on there, then that should be the deferral request Dorset Council's views on self-insurance or and the member briefing to go through the technical detail that officers have reviewed. And the legal position to pick up on the points that Councillor Atkinson's made.
Okay, so obviously, we know there's discontent about the decision. We've heard in the room that councillors have some queries that haven't fully been answered to their satisfaction at this stage, and we have a form of words up there regarding a deferral. From my own personal perspective, deferral wasn't something I was coming in to look for this evening, and considering what's now come up in discussion, I can see that there have been some valid points raised. We've obviously got the proposal, we've got the second. So it's proposed by Councillor Hope, seconded by Councillor Atkinson, so I think at this stage. Probably time to move.
Sorry, Chair, just to summarise this, to capture all the points of the meeting, if I may. And I think we should maybe reach out to our local MP who said he's fighting this cause and yet has not spoken to Weymouth Town Council.
You can solve anything.
Yeah.
Yeah, fair point, that was what I heard. So I'll just read it out in case people watching online can't see that on the screen. Deferral and request Dorset Council's view on self-insurance. Also a member briefing to review the technical position and legal advice received by the council. And to reach out to the local MP. Do we want any more wording on that last section? I know that's Councillor Neary that originally mentioned the MP. So do you want it additionally on that section?
No, I think, yeah. It's fine.
So now that that's been written up on screen, I do just need to check in. You're happy to propose that as written? Happy to second still? Okay. Is there anyone else that would like further discussion on what we currently have in front of us up on the screen? Okay. All those in favour of the deferral and the description above? And that is unanimous. Okay. That's the outcome of that one for this evening. We'll come back to that at a later point. Okay. Yeah, got to work out where I am now. Thank you very much to the public. For the benefit of people watching online, most of the public are heading out now. Okay, so we are.
It says here quite clear.
Yeah, just waiting for members to come to order. So yeah, what was originally billed as item 7, that sounded very formal, didn't it? Sorry, councillor.
That was very good, that was.
What was originally billed as item 7, so this is the fun fairs for 2026 and beyond, and Charlotte, they need to introduce.
Thank you, Chair. This report outlines the operation of Weymouth seasonal fun fairs in 2025 and makes recommendations for future years. Due to the Harbour Wall works, the Pavilion forecourt was unavailable this summer, so the fun fair operated only from the Jubilee Clock site for a 28-day period in August. Following the season, officers sought feedback from key stakeholders. This included the Pavilion, Dorset Police and the Hotel and Guest House Association. They all reported positive outcomes and expressed a clear preference to the Jubilee Clock location, particularly noting reduced antisocial behaviour, better lighting at CCTV and minimal impact on nearby businesses and hotels. Dorset Council have confirmed that the Pavilion forecourt will remain unavailable for 2026, and previous reviews found no suitable alternative sites. Officers therefore recommend continuing with the Jubilee Clock site for a 28-day period each August from 2026 onwards, retaining the existing ride layout and operating conditions.
Thank you very, very much indeed. So we've had the introduction, so this is fun fairs for 2026. Are there any members that would like to speak regarding this item? Councillor Hope.
Thank you very much.
Never doubted it for a second. Go for it.
Fairgrounds and fireworks, they were the nightmares of my time in the chair. However, I feel that hopefully this meeting will come to a very quick resolution, and I think that given that we've looked at alternative sites year after year after year, and they've come up with nothing, and we really have looked at everything. And given that this year seemed very successful with the arrangements that were in place at the clock, and that's not just a reflection, I believe, of Weymouth Town Council. I don't believe that we had any complaints from residents. And I attended a community safety briefing with Dorset Police, and I asked their feedback on the location, and they said it was so much better for them. They had no issues. Monday night fireworks were more manageable without large groups of youths. So I believe that we should continue with that arrangement. Obviously, I'm not going to talk to the confidential appendix. However, I can see that actually we as council are really no different in a financial position based on what we was doing and the aggro that came with it to what we provided last year. So, Chair, I'm more than happy to actually, when we come to a recommendation, propose what's in the report.
Okay. Happy, is that a second? So you, just to formalise this, were you proposing that at this point? Happy to take the second? Yeah, is there anyone else that wants to speak to this item? In which case, massive change of events. We will we'll move to the vote. So all those in favour? In record time for a fun fair item. That is unanimous and the decision is reached.
Check. Charmaine's okay, but she probably wasn't expecting that.
There you go. Oh, wow. Okay, right. Item 8 as originally numbered. This is Sandsfoot Garden Bridge. Paul Bird to introduce. I think Paul thought you had another half hour there.
Thank you, Jack. This report outlines the current position regarding the ornamental bridge at Sandsfoot Gardens, which was condemned in 2021 following confirmation of extensive structural rot. Previous design options for replacement with either a steel bridge or viewing platform were found to be prohibitively expensive. Officers have since explored more cost-effective alternatives and obtained quotes indicating that full removal of the bridge, followed by an installation of a steel balustrade and glass panel interpretation boards, could be achieved for approximately £5,000 plus modest additional costs within the existing green spaces budget. In light of the urgent need to address safety concerns and the absence of external funding, the officer recommendation is to proceed with the removal of the bridge and installation of the balustrade and glass panel, thereby ensuring safe public access and continued enjoyment of unobstructed views across the garden and castle.
Thank you very much. Let me just check with the officer recommendation written.
Yeah.
He doesn't mention the balustrade. Is it not to be in there, need to be in there because we've already got budget for it, is that?
Yes, because you've already got the budget, haven't you, for the balustrade, so you wouldn't need
Doesn't need to be in the recommendation. Thank you very much for that bit of clarity. Okay, so Sandsford Garden Bridge, anyone like to speak on this item, councillor Weller?
Thank you. I think it's a great shame, but I accept the recommendations. This is an oak structure, and one would expect an oak structure of the size of those beams and so on to be really rather more robust. I appreciate that it's in quite a hostile environment. So I'm sadly in support of the fact that the bridge has to be removed. I'm a little concerned about the viewing platform in galvanized steel rather than wood, because I just think that that's going to look inappropriate in that location. And I accept that if it's timber, in 15 years' time, we come back to the same problem. But I'd quite like us to explore, if we could, and if others agree with me, I'd quite like us to explore something, if we're going to have a viewing platform, that it's something a little bit more in keeping with that environment. And galvanized steel is pretty horrible. And that's a particularly nice, well, all of our gardens are particularly nice. That's a particularly nice location. And I think it's quite a shame. So that's really just an opinion, as much as anything else. Others may agree or disagree. Don't like the idea of a galvanized steel structure in that location, I'm afraid.
Just to clarify, I'm not proposing, or the officer recommendation is not for a viewing platform.
No.
Just for a simple kind of steel handrail, with a glass panel underneath. There wouldn't be it'd just be.
No, but the sorry, if I may, Chair, the galvanized rail.
Yeah. I'd like to clarify.
Is pretty ugly. You know, in my view, that's all. It's not really appropriate to my view to that location. So I think that that's a shame, but I understand the reasons and the recommendation and everything else. It just doesn't sit well with me.
Very much. Anyone else like to speak on this item? That's right.
I'd like to ask the office a little bit more about the memorial plaques, which seemed an interesting idea. Could that first of all be a percentage of that could be sold in the cafe and a percentage held by the friends and the balance coming into the council? And would it be a interesting prototype for perhaps having plaques associated with no, for instance? You know, maybe that's quite an interesting idea. Could you speak a bit more about that?
Yeah, I understand the proposal of the plaques was similar to a structure that was put in at Castle Cove Beach, where people paid for plaques to fund the steps that went in there. I think for the cost of a viewing platform or replacement bridge, you're looking at minimum of 25,000.
No, I'm not that reason. I just thought the idea of it being a revenue earner and perhaps helping them support the gardens, the flowering of the gardens.
Okay.
That not to build money. Sorry.
Okay, no, that's something certainly that could be considered further down the line. You know, if people wanted to sponsor a plaque somewhere else in the garden to fund future developments, then I don't see why we wouldn't entertain it.
Thank you very much. Councillor, have you indicated?
Yes, please. Thank you, Chair. I'm struggling with this one. So the bridge is obviously being shut down, not in use. At the moment, we've got nothing to get across to there. But it's not a problem because you can actually walk around the path still to get to the castle. So this is the bridge to nowhere, which I'm very much glad that this committee previously rejected the £124,000 replacement. But now we're still looking at putting a viewing platform in. We're not, no, sorry, I thought from the introduction well. So the recommendation is to do nothing, remove and just remove.
Do you want to explain the balustrade?
Yeah, so it's purely would be almost a goalpost structure made out of steel, sort of balustrade or whatever material we decide to do that in, with a glass panel, just so that you can still see where that opening is. At the moment where you walk onto the bridge, it would be shut off. So
That's the same, it'd be nice to have a photo.
I only knocked that up,
It's a long block.
only knocked that up today, so it'd just be a simple sort of panel to stop you going down the bank. But they would still give unobstructed views of the castle for those who won't be able to see over a fence or similar.
I think it was in the papers.
Was it the one that you sent me last week?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it might be slightly adapted since then. My friend AI has been around for months.
Yeah, that's exactly what I thought, yeah.
So something along those lines, obviously that's a AI generated image, but something that would fence off the risk of falling down the bank, but would still allow an unobstructed view of the castle and what's beyond. And the idea is maybe have some interpretation boards along the top rail or nearby, so that you can explain what you're looking at. Got Portland obviously in the distance, got the castle and other areas, so it can explain what is in the vicinity.
Thank you. So I hope that's clear to members. I think we all, a lot of us visited the site recently or know the site previously. That to me seemed like a very reasonable solution to the problem. You're maintaining the sight lines to the castle. You're not losing access in reality because you can walk around the path. We're providing an extra facility in as much as there's going to be an information board, which was something we spoke about when we had the environmental services tour of our sites around the town. So I'm very, very happy to propose that we sort of back our officers on this one. They found a reasonable solution and explained it well, and very grateful to them for coming up with that. If money was no object, would there be other solutions? Possibly, but we're not in that situation. So I'm very happy to propose the officer recommendation.
Want to speak?
Okay, Councillor Lewis, speak away.
Yeah, I believe the committee's here to voice opinion. I think that's one of the key things of the committee. And this is personal opinion. I think the stainless steel ugly. My frying pan stainless steel, not a viewing platform at the Sandsford Council. So, personal opinion, I am opposed, similar as Councillor Weller said. I think stainless steel can look quite brutalist in some regards. So that was the only problem I have with the idea.
Were other materials looked at?
No, I could say it was just an option to put in place, not necessarily tied to that material.
Thanks, can I just ask you? Yeah, that's what I was going to ask. So the recommendation we're making is for the removal of the bridge in its entirety.
Yeah.
The work to actually put in, we're calling that a balustrade, whatever we're calling that frame system, that's not actually within the recommendation. So I just hope that feedback's been noted by yourself, Paul, and so that it can be looked at after. But the recommendation is actually for the removal of the bridge.
That is only the officer recommendation, so you can change it if you prefer a material in there or.
Yeah, so that's the one that we've got a quote in place for, just as an option for the steel balustrade and the glass panel. But
that actually isn't
we can
part of
entertain
the-
different options.
Do we want to have a more specific instruction there, or are we happy to leave this with the officers? I personally am happy to leave it with our officers to find the best solution, but Councillor Tom?
Can I just make an observation that if you just turn and face the row of flats that look out over the thingy, there's a lot of them with glass balustrade, stainless steel rails. So it actually, it's not a million miles away from something that's just over there, so I'd be quite happy with it.
Thank you, and I feel like we give the feedback to the officer, and I'm sure it's been noted. Councillor Weller?
Just for the avoidance of doubt, it was the galvanised steel that I objected to, which is quite different from stainless steel.
That's on viewing that.
And that's what I didn't fancy. And just as a background, I opened this bridge. I've been here such a long time.
You're worried when you said 15 years time. When they say
So I feel a degree of ownership towards it, and a disappointment that something I opened has lasted such a short space of time, in my view. But I think that I did wonder why it was there in the first place. I did question the officers in the first place as to why we're building it, but we received money to do so. So it didn't come out of ratepayers' money. So we didn't waste any ratepayers' money to do so. And I think the time has come for it to be taken down. So if you're proposing, I'm very happy to second.
Thank you very much. So we've got a proposer, myself, and councillor Weller seconding. Councillor Hope, do you want to
Yeah.
speak?
I'm just thinking, Chair, if I may, and you indulge me a second to make an amendment slightly that since councillor Weller did open it, she just mentioned maybe she could remove the first screw. That's just a bit of humour as windy at Christmas.
Do have a spanner.
Right, okay, I think we're ready for the vote on this. So we've got the officer recommendation. We've made some points to the boys, noted them. Let's move to the vote. All those in favour? And that is unanimous. Thank you very much, Paul.
Thank you.
Right, so we've done that one, we've done that one. We've done that one. Right, so we are on item 10 of the original listing, which is the Iron Kids event. So I think you introduce this and then we go to the house. So Charmaine will introduce the item.
Thank you. So myself and our amenities manager, Ben Heath, were approached by Ironman organisers. So this is where this has come from. And as per the report, it provides an overview of the Iron Kids event. It's a children's version of the main Ironman race and sets out a proposal for Weymouth to host it in September 26 as part of the wider Ironman weekend. Iron Kids offers local children from ages 3 to 15 a chance to take part in a fully supported, accessible running event that uses the same professional infrastructure as the adult race. It's expected to attract around 1,000 young participants with safety, accessibility and local engagement built firmly into the design of the event. Keep entry fees affordable for families. The organisers have requested a £10,000 partnership contribution from Town Council alongside Dorset Council's confirmed support. They've confirmed a monetary contribution as well. This can be met from existing budgets and would help ensure the event remains genuinely accessible to local children with promotion through our schools and youth networks. The recommendation for members is that the committee supports adding Iron Kids to the 2026 programme and agrees the required partnership funding, noting that this is a one-year commitment with an option to review in the future.
Thank you very much. Now, at this point, councillor Harris mentioned this. Councillor Harris waving at me over there, mentioned in the questions earlier in this evening's proceedings that he was going to come back for this item. So, councillor Harris.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. I'm totally against this £10,000 being used in this way. It's not obviously a community event. We've just appointed a new community development officer. I think it would be much better for that community development officer to have the £10,000 to use with our communities. I'm confident that we could have a much better community engagement for our money if our communities could be engaged in offering events. For example, if we offered every friends group £1,000 each to put on a fun day, we would be welcomed. Ironman is already frowned upon in many quarters in this town because of the money they receive. So to give them another money pot would not be very much appreciated. I implore the committee to ask officers to go back to the drawing board and consider this from a different view. We have £10,000 to spend on community development. What ideas do the community have for spending this money and which will engage most of the community that we've got in living in this town and hopefully develop most sustainability? I ask you to consider those points when you're making the discussion. Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman.
Councillor O'Leary.
This evening's getting even weirder. I actually fully agree with what the leader of the council just said. I think £10,000 for this event is a lot of money. I think being the chairman, I do declare that I'm of a community group. What I could do with £10,000, even as a one-off payment, I could do a huge amount. So I am of the opinion that I will be voting no to this money being spent.
Councillor.
Don't make a habit of it tonight, Chair. I would actually be suggesting a deferral and have a briefing from the Ironman to actually understand this event in more detail. As a father of 2 young children and very active children, maybe not running, but different things, I actually see this as a great opportunity for our youngsters. Whilst I agree it shouldn't be meant from money that's going into community development, and I know Councillor Atkinson at one of our last meetings made a comment around community development and in doing more in our communities. I'd like to see this, as something else we could do. And the thing I would like to see is that Weymouth Town Council is going to fund it, that children from Weymouth that enter for free. Because I presume this is open to children all over the country as Ironman already is, and it's running at the same time. So the infrastructure is in place, staffing's in place. So I'm not sure where the additional costs, maybe a bit more staffing is coming from. But I would actually like to say that if we are going to do it, our children in this town, as their parents are the ratepayers, get to do it for free. And that's why I think I'd welcome a briefing, understand the event a little bit more, understand what it could bring to the town, before making a decision. And that's a proposal for deferral with a briefing with more information on the event.
Councillor O'Leary.
I'm against a deferral. I don't like deferrals. I think we are here to make a decision. They do have a place, but at the end of the day, coming back to a similar point earlier, in regards to wanting more information, you do have time from when the agenda is published last Wednesday to now to ask information. I'm sorry if you feel you've asked questions of officers before and you didn't get the response, but I mean, I was down here this afternoon to ask officers questions, not on this item, but express the opinion. I don't think that this money, I don't believe that £10,000 of ratepayers money from Littlemore, in my case as a board member, should be taken from them and then used to fund this event. So I'm opposed to it, and I'm opposed to a deferral, and I'll be voting no to a deferral. I think we can make a decision. We've deferred one big item already. Let's start, getting back on track. This is a committee delegate to make decisions on behalf of the council, not constantly saying we need more information, we need more information.
Thank you very much. Councillor Toft.
Thank you.
Is there a second?
I'm absolutely torn on this because it is a lot of money, but I think anything that motivates children to get out from behind their screens and do something has to be welcomed. And I thoroughly agree with the suggestion that, our children should go free. We might have an Olympic swimmer somewhere in our community who gets inspired by seeing something like this.
Can't swim to the revs.
Sorry?
They can't swim to the revs.
Sorry, I was interrupted in my flow. I think I'll bring that.
Okay, just going to refer to what you just said to me.
So when we had the briefing from Ironman, basically, if we put less money in, or Dorset Council put less money in, then the price per child would go up. If we didn't put any money in, if we put more money in, the price per child would go down. So they could subsidise. I'm looking at Ben because there was a briefing. If we want free places to wait, if we need to contribute more money.
Yeah, it's based on the contribution levels, the premium price down. I want to say if we put in 10, Doors put in the 22, it's about £6 an entry rather than a lot. So.
Councillor Well, I think was next.
Can I just ask, Charmaine, there's quite a long lead-in time on this, so they'll want a decision from us relatively soon, I'm guessing. I don't know whether you've got an exact date yet, but it would be useful for us to know that whilst we're considering anything else. I think it's a great event. It's a huge family event. It brings in vast numbers of visitors, which is all to the good for the economy of the town at a time when the season is beginning to run down, including youngsters is great. I think £6 for an awful lot of our families, if they've got 2 or 3 children, would preclude them from taking part, and that would be a huge shame. So I think they're unlikely to say our local children can be free, but I think it's certainly something we should be asking if we do it. We have to bear in mind that entrance to Ironman, the Ironman itself, the triathlon, pay £400 to enter. So, we're talking about big money there. Perhaps we should be saying if a local mother or father takes part, their child gets a free entry. That would galvanise a few people, getting fit between now and next September, wouldn't it? But I would hate to see us not do this. And actually, I don't think £10,000 is that much, but it is a lot for us, and £6 is a lot for our families.
I think it's worth noting that the Iron Man organisers want a decision as soon as possible.
Yeah.
So they could start that process. Also, if we didn't contribute £10,000, it could be that the event still goes ahead because Dorset Council is still contributing, however, the entry fee would be higher.
Thank you. Just another point, as swimming was mentioned earlier, it is a run only event. It's worth noting, it's not full triathlon. I think it was councillor Hope, I believe.
So this goes back to having more information. So it sounds like Ironman are going to run this event anyway, and if we don't contribute, the price would be higher. Now, considering that, I would rather say we aren't doing it, run a scheme for our local children that want to do it, and we will cover their fees.
Yes,
Right.
yeah, absolutely.
And that's why I talked to Councillor O'Leary about deferral and getting this information.
Yeah.
Did you answer the conflict?
Councillor Atkinson.
Yeah, my point is perhaps rather, councillor, I'm not quite sure what we're getting for our money apart from advertising Ironman. We run events, running events around Longmore for kids. Why can't we just organise one for ourselves? I mean, it's not going to bring many more visitors into the town because it's only the day before the main Ironman. So I'm not quite sure what we're getting for our money really, rather than organising a run separate from the Ironman competition.
Just for clarity, we host running events on our sites, but we don't manage them. Just to clear that up. Councillor O'Leary.
Yeah, it's coming back from councillor Hope's point. We're either gonna help fund a private organisation run an event or subsidise our children to run a private event. I don't believe that's an effective use of taxpayers' money. You know, we voted to start charging residents in Preston to use the toilet. You know, we've got other outstanding jobs on our priorities list as a council. I don't think giving 10 grand people to go running is exactly a very good use of the money. I can't see the benefit, frankly, looking at the report.
Okay, we had a proposal earlier, didn't we? But it was on second.
Well, I make a proposal that we defer this, not defer, sorry, reject this and give them money. I'd like to second.
Yeah, the proposal from Councillor Hope is that we don't give the money to the Ironman Kids event. I kind of sat and listened to this debate, and I'm very from a very sporty background myself, and I know how inspirational it can be for young people to take part in sport when they've got that surrounding of like the the higher level stuff and the finish lines and the banners and the crowds that will be there. I'm very torn on this. £10,000 is a lot of money. If it was £10,000, that's free entry for our local kids. I'll be straight on this, but given that there's still an entry fee, I find myself very conflicted on this. I recently took my daughter to the Rugby World Cup final, and just being in that environment, the Women's Rugby World Cup final, being in that high quality sports environment inspires. And to my mind, we're very, very fortunate. And of course, a lot of effort goes in, a lot of money, I get that, and the road closures caused by that, I completely understand that. But we have a world-class event that comes to our town. And I've been down there with my children and they see that event happening, it is inspirational. However, I still come back to the point, this is £10,000 in, £6 still wanted. And that's where I sort of take umbrage with this situation. So, where are we up to? Councillor Hope has proposed not to give the money. Been seconded by Councillor O'Leary. We've had clarification that the event would still run. This just impacts the entry fee.
I think so, yeah, because Dorset Council have already committed their 2/3 of that subsidy. So as far as we understood, it would still run, but the entry fee would be higher than £6.
Okay, and that option would obviously still remain open for the parents in the area. Okay. We've got the proposal. We've got second as well. I think we all understand what the proposal is, not to give that money over. So, all those in favour of the proposal? All those against? And there should be no abstentions. Oh, sorry, one abstention, sorry.
I'm afraid I'm a bit like you, Madam.
Yeah, very conflicted on that one. I'm not sure how I feel about that outcome, but the event will still be there, we assume at this stage, and who knows, maybe my little ones might be coming apart. So, at that point, we are, where are we? Information items. We've moved everything around, haven't we? So, information item 12, any council questions regarding information items should be submitted in advance of the meeting, which we're all aware of. So I hope all members have read those. They're obviously available publicly as well on the website when the agenda goes out. So no packing up yet, members, because few people are currently leaving. We have another item to come. So at this point, item 13 of the agenda is the exclusion of the public and press. So under the Public Bodies Admissions to Meetings Act 1960, members of the public and press are, thank you very much for coming tonight, are required to leave the meeting due to the sensitive nature of the item next to be considered. So the recommendation is the councillors agree to exclude the public and press at this point in time. So I'm presuming I will propose that. Seconded by councillor Taylor. All those in favour? That's not quite unanimous. Does that still count unanimous? Yeah, cool. So we'll just wait for the link.
Unless someone want to propose a deferral.
Bear with.